I've been briefed by my team on the situation. We still don't know all the facts, but we do know that several people have been shot and some have been killed. So we are confronting yet another mass shooting. And today it happened on a military installation in our nation's capital. It's a shooting that targeted our military and civilian personnel. These are men and women who were going to work, doing their job, protecting all of us. They're patriots, and they know the dangers of serving abroad, but today they face the unimaginable violence that they wouldn't have expected here at home.
All right, folks, welcome to the Steve Malzberg Show, Monday edition, and that is the news that we are starting with today, the shooting at the Navy Yard in Washington, D.C. We now have 12 dead, including the shooter, I believe, and they are still looking for one more possible shooter. Joining us now to walk us through what has happened, how it transpired, is reporter and anchor for NBC News Radio in Washington, D.C., John Stolnis. Hey, John, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Okay, so let's start backwards if we can. I believe the latest is they had been looking for two additional possible shooters in addition to the one shooter who is dead. One black male, one white male, but they have since ruled out the white male that they've been searching for, correct?
That's correct. And the thing with this is they're getting these other shooters from surveillance video at the Navy base. And it's really hard to tell if you see the surveillance video, and I haven't seen the surveillance video, but from everything that's been reported, NBC's Pete Williams has been following up on this, is that you can't tell if these are simply guys who work at the Navy Yard and they're allowed to have weapons and they're drawing their weapons as a means of self-protection or to protect others, or if they're some kind of security there, or if they're a part of the shooting, a part of the event, if they're in cahoots with the shooter. So there's a lot of the fog of this kind of thing that happens. You know, you're not real sure who's doing what, and it's the surveillance video is not clear. So they're still looking for one other person, but most people seem to think that this incident is really just confined to the one shooter, 34-year-old Aaron Alexis from Texas.
What do we know about Aaron Alexis from Texas?
We don't know much. We know he's a civilian. He's a civilian contractor who just recently started working for the Navy. We know that he got on the base by using a former employee's ID. This former employee was apparently either just laid off or resigned not more than a few days ago. But police seem to think right now that's merely just kind of a coincidence. So the FBI is speaking to him. They don't believe that he's necessarily involved, but they're definitely checking up on it because they want to know how this guy's ID got in the hands of Aaron Alexis.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're not talking about there was a wrong name. The CBS News and some others were going with a Raleigh Chance, and then they quickly withdrew that. And he is a Navy Chief Petty Officer, so he wasn't the person whose ID was used, is it?
We have not gotten a confirmation as to the name of the person whose ID was used, so
okay.
I can't really comment
And they
on
don't
that.
think right now that the person who recently left somehow gave the ID to this person, is in cahoots, if you will, with this person? No reason to believe that right now?
They're not sure. They're going to interview him and see. I don't think that they believe that he's involved, but it certainly raises an eyebrow or two when somebody's ID, and it's very coincidental that this guy was just laid off not more than a few days ago, or he resigned. It's not clear whether he was laid off or resigned, so still a lot of unanswered questions with this guy.
When you say Aaron Alexis from Texas, African-American, I presume, when he's dead, and you say he was an independent contractor who just started, working in what capacity? Do we know?
We don't know that yet either. Again, the details are slow in coming out. They just released his name about a half an hour ago, so we're still learning a little bit more about the background of this guy.
All right, so take us through, if you can, what happened today,
Sure,
for those who don't know.
Sure. It was around 8:30 this morning Eastern Time. There were reports of shots fired. Alexis allegedly went into the headquarters at the naval base and there are about 3,000 people who work there on a daily basis, and he walked in right at around the time everybody's getting there, and immediately people said they heard 3 shots fired and then a pause, and then eyewitnesses say there was another 4 or 5 shots fired right away, and people started streaming for the exits. They put out on the loudspeaker for everybody to get out to the emergency exit. Every military base has a protocol for this sort of thing, especially since the Fort Hood shooting a few years ago, and so eventually this guy, apparently he took 11 lives. It's unclear still whether he killed himself or was killed by police. I think it's more likely he was killed by police, but we don't know that for sure yet. And
he went building to building?
Well, they say at first he was standing above the cafeteria. Apparently there's an overlook from a floor above where he started picking people off from a floor above overlooking the cafeteria. And then he started moving from room to room, and there was one eyewitness who said he described himself as hiding under his cubicle, and he watched as this man shot a security guard or a naval-based police officer in the legs. So it seemed like it was a combination of he was picking people off from a height of some kind, and then went from room to room, cubicle to cubicle. It's the naval base is a huge complex, especially the headquarters, and there are a lot of different ways he could go about doing this. There's small enclosed areas, and there's large areas as well. So, and he was carrying a lot of ammunition. He had a handgun and an assault rifle and a shotgun with him. So he was prepared to do some damage.
And he could get in. You could get into that naval base with the proper ID, carrying that kind of ammunition.
Well, it's unclear exactly how he got on. I mean, he did get on with the ID, but it's unclear how he got on with all of that ammunition and with all of that firepower. Now, consider people are allowed to be armed on base, certain people. I mean, you do have access to weapons on that base, and lots of people are in military clothing on that base. So no one's real sure. It's one of the unanswered questions, how he managed to get all of these weapons on base. Right. But, you know, each military facility has their own security setup. I mean, sometimes it can vary from gate to gate, hour to hour, depending on who the guard is. I'm married to a military family, and we live right in between Fort Belvoir and Quantico here in Northern Virginia. And I've been on both military bases numerous times, got married at Fort Belvoir, and it really just depends on the guard you have. I mean, you have to have a military decal on your car in order to get onto both of those bases.
Right. Interesting. All right, one more question. I understand the Senate, which had been in recess, has now gone into lockdown, so there'll be no further business in the Senate. And I guess the city, some schools were on lockdown, and the dismissal, I don't know, has it taken place yet or not?
I believe the schools are still on lockdown. I believe there were 8 schools entirely, 8 or 9. I don't know the exact number, but yeah, a number of D.C. schools were on lockdown. Reagan Airport was actually stopped all outgoing flights for about 45 minutes this morning as well. So yeah, D.C. is normally a pretty secure town as it is, but especially in the area of southeast D.C. Where the naval base is, it's gotten much tighter, and people are just keeping an extra eye out now around town.
All right. Listen, I really do appreciate it. John Stolnis, NBC News Radio in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Steve.
Take care. All right, folks. So there you have the latest. They're still looking possibly for one more shooter. They know that the one shooter is definitely dead. They're not sure if they're looking for one more or not. They thought they were looking for 2, a white man and a black man. They've since ruled out the white man, and maybe eventually they'll rule out the remaining suspect as well. We just don't know. They have identified the shooter that they know of, who is dead, who either killed himself or was killed by police. Again, an independent contractor, not a member of the military, and just started, and apparently used stolen ID from someone who had just left that facility and went on to another career or left but no longer is there. How he got that ID is still a matter of great concern, and so is the one man that they're still looking for, obviously, as evidenced by the lockdown of the schools still in effect and the lockdown of the U.S. Senate building as well. When we come back, we will take a look at this with David Katz, founder and CEO of Global Security Group. He's a former senior special agent for DEA, a firearms and homeland security expert. We'll talk to him about how this could have happened and what it means if there is more than one shooter. All that straight ahead right here on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax TV and